Batra Daf Samach Daled Mud Aleph, 18 lines down by the Gemara. You mentioned in the Mishnah regarding a bor or a dut, these type of pits, that whether or not they're included in part of a cell. The Gemara asks a technical question. Yativ Rabina B'Katash Rabina had a question. I knew bor, I knew dut. Both of them mean water reservoirs. Both mean water cisterns. I previously tried to make it ambiguous whether or not which one was which, but in the end they both are the same thing. Why have to mention both? Tashma. The Tanya Berta says, "Ehad habor ve'ehad adut bekarka." Both the board and the dut are in the ground. So what's the difference? Ela shehabor b'hafira ve'hadut b'bnyan. The board is just a hole in the ground, and a dut is a hole in the ground with a structure, like that pit with the well structure with the bricks. Same question, same answer. Okay. Next part of Mishnah. Right? According to our Mishnah, Rabbi Akiva holds that the seller has to buy back a pathway to his pit, and Rabbi Hachmim say you don't have to buy back. Maybe the machloket is what we have. We assumed. Did Rabbi Akiva savari mocher be'en yafeh mocher? That Rabbi Akiva holds that when you're selling something, you sell it generously, and therefore he sold the area around it. Therefore, if he wants to go back to his pit, he has to buy it back. But Rabbanan Sabrin Hachmim hold mocher be'en ra'a mocher. A person, when he sells it stingily. He doesn't sell everything in one shot, and therefore, when he's keeping his pit, he's keeping the path to the pit as well, and he doesn't have to buy it back. And that's why whenever we say whenever we say in Shas that Rabbi Akiva holds that a person sells with a good eye, ayin yafeh means a good eye, but generously, that halacha comes from our Mishnah right here. Gemara says, "Whoa, Mimai, who says this is the proof?" Dima, our case is different. Rabbi Akiva Rabbi Akiva holds that a person doesn't want to buy a property and have others walk through it. That's why if I'm buying your land, I don't want to have you have access to the pit by walking through my property. You want access? Buy it. A person hold the opposite. No, a person doesn't have to buy back up the path, because when he sells something and he wants to withhold the pit in the property, he's not going to withhold something that he won't have access to, that he has to fly to get to. And therefore, the seller must have access through a path. So therefore, there's no proof that this is the machloket of mocher be'ain yafeh or in ra'ah. What does a seller's mindset is when he sells stuff? Maybe bring a different proof. But let me say that. Maybe the second part of the Mishnah. The owner of the house sold the pit to someone else and kept the property for himself. The guy doesn't have to buy himself a right of way to the pit because he included it. Say you do need to buy it. So again, we see over here Rabbi Akiva would hold that the seller is selling it generously, and therefore he sells the path as well. And Hamim say he's not selling it generously, therefore the guy does not need to buy the path. That's not a good proof as well, because there's different machlokes going on over there. But Rabbi Akiva holds to go according to the buyer's mindset, and he wants the path. And Hamim hold no, you go according to what the seller is thinking, and the seller wants to sell only the pit and not the path. And if you want the path, you have to pick it up. All right. So basically, the basic mindset is Rabbi Akiva will always go toward the buyer. Meaning, a guy won't buy something if he doesn't have access to it. And Hachmim would always go for the seller, because the seller has the document that he sold the property. I sold just the house. You want to see that you put the house in the path, or vice versa? Prove it. Okay. So now we have to check again. We have no proof that this is the machloket. We brought different reasons why those cases might not be in regards to the mindsets. So what's going on? We have element how we could bring a proof from the Fine Mishnah. Person is selling the field, not saying what's inside. He does not sell the pit, the wine press, or the birdhouse. Ben harivim ben jun whether or not in use. And the seller must buy the right of way. That's according to Rabbi Akiva. And Hamim say you don't have to buy it back. It's automatic. So why we need this case as well? We already have two cases. We see over here this is machloket. This should be the source of whether or not a person sells generously or stingily. The Gemara says, no, not a proof. Maybe the first part of the Mishnah mentioned a house specifically. The second part of Mishnah teaches just the field. We need both cases. The Ashmin Bayit, we only mentioned the case of a house, Mishum Debayit Sinuta. Rabbi Akiva over there would say that the reason why a person needs to buy back the position is the path is because he needs a guy would want to be in charge of the house that he bought. He wants to be in charge of the privacy. Maybe regarding the field, not. Ari Ashmin instead I mentioned the field, Mishum Dekash the Davsha, because I don't want people walking through my field. Rabbi Kiva would say that I don't want people walking through my field. I'll buy it. Maybe regarding a house, you can say that maybe he doesn't want it. So now we still do not have a proof that the machlok is based off of mindset, or rather the seller's mindset. So we need to bring a proof again. If the owner of the field sold the pit or the wine press or the birdhouse by itself, Rabbi Akiva says, doesn't buy the path. Say you do have to buy it. How we need this case? The same as the other case of the first Mishnah, right? We mentioned the first Mishnah regarding the water and the pit. If you sold the house and left over the pit, and now that part of the Mishnah also said if you sold just the pit and left over the house. Now this Mishnah as well, it's the same thing. If you sold the field and left over the pit or the wine press, or if you sold the wine press and left over the house. So now we see over here, it's the same identical case. For the we prove from here that the Mishnah teaches us that Rabbi Akiva and Chachamim have machloket based off of the mindset of a seller when he sells something. Is he selling it generously or not? Okay, Itmar. Rav Huna said that you sell stingily. Rabbi Shmuel, they say that they sell generously. One second, I saw before Rabbi Akiva that you said Rabbi Akiva. You didn't argue with me. What's going on? You just want to credit your own word. Amar Lei says, hey, then how did you learn? Who said what according to your position? Who said what regarding who said generous? Who said stingy? Amar Lei Ibchatinina. I learned the opposite, meaning he learned that Rabbi Hachamim say you sell generously and Rabbi Akiva holds stingy. So he says, that's why I didn't protest, because I held that even though you quoted the opposite, but you quoted the rabbi's opposite as well, and therefore it fits perfectly. Amar there be another let's say Rabbi and Shmuel hold like their own mahloket. That what? Amar Nachman Shmuel ha'achin shahalko, brothers that divided an inheritance. Ein lahen lo derech al. When they split the inheritance, they can't use a path through the portion of each other's property. You can't use a ladder in other person's property. You can't have blocked each other's windows. You can't have a water irrigation passing through the other person's property. And make sure you're very careful with these because they're really halachot. Rabbi said, no, you do have rights, right? Meaning, we see maybe the machlok in Rav and Shmuel over here is the same machlok regarding selling something. Selling something, you could go generous or stingy. Over here as well, regarding inheritance, seemingly it's the same machlok whether or not you inherit generously, that I have access or not, according to Rav and Shmuel. Where it says tzricha, we need both cases in regarding to sale and inheritance. The Yashmin and Bahi, only mentioned the case of inheritance. Because maybe over there, Rav would say that you get the right only because the guy wants to have access to the property, just like his father had access to the property. The pasuk says when you inherit something, you be like your father. Maybe over there, Rav would only say it. Maybe regarding to a sale, he'll agree to Shmuel that you sell it generously, that you sell it generously, and therefore you won't have access. And therefore we have to mention it. But yeah, Ibn Rabbi only mentioned the machloket regarding the sale for Behach over there. Maybe Shmuel will only say that you sell it generously. But regarding to inheritance, maybe he'll agree with Rav that he would have the same rights as his father. Therefore, we have both machlokets teach us that in both cases regarding a sale and inheritance, Rav and Shmuel will still argue whether or not you have access to previous rights or not. Okay. Hilchata Kavatin is halacha according to us, Yani Shmuel, that you sell generously. According to you, Rav, that it's stingy. Like you, because you are closer to the Resh Kaluta, the head of the Hachamim, the Shichi, you have more judges, and therefore halacha must be like you, that behold that mocher be'en ra'ai, you sell stingily.